for those who are on the line, we're going to get three speakers today. I'm one of them. If you are in the building, there's only a few people who are in the building with us, but we are up in the Riverside Mill Development office, which will eventually be a big social consumption space. So that'll be fun when that happens. But my name is Jay Morissette, and I'm going to host this event and kind of take you through the bits and pieces. We're each going to try and only speak for a few minutes because hopefully the Q&A is a little bit more interesting than the boring speakers. And our agenda is a blunt look at reality, so what it really takes to start and operate a cannabis business, Massachusetts social equity program and grants, forming a vertically integrated social equity community, and starting right now, then we're going to get to Q&A, information gathering, and breakout sessions if people want to do it. I'll just jump to me. 30 years of business in various places, mostly tech companies, lots of startups. And right now I'm doing cannabis consulting. And I've got a really deep education. Founded Milltown Agriculture, which is downstairs, is vertically integrated, cultivation, manufacturing, and retail. I don't run that business anymore because it didn't do as well as I wanted it to. And we had to hire other people to run it so I could go back to work and keep my life going, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this portion of the presentation, because the vision that you kind of get when you think you're going to start a cannabis company and you're going to make $1 million isn't really how this actually goes. So the startup process, if you're not aware of it, usually takes people more than a year. And a little information on that, as it says, most social equity applicants never acquire a provisional license. It's harder than you think. Most provisional licensors never open their door. It's harder than you think. Most of that get to the final license stage fail. And that's not out of the norm for startups, by the way. 99% of all startups fail. It's just hard starting a business. Starting a business requires more effort than you think, more money than you think. And the cannabis market is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's low margin. You got to work extremely hard to get it. If you're starting a business, you're going to force yourself to do things you hate for a very long time. And you're going to have to sacrifice nearly every minute of every day. And if failing is going to ruin you financially, you should not do this. In other words, if you're taking your last dollar and putting it up there and you're not going to be able to support your family or your kids or keep going with your life, take the advice that I give most people about doing this and don't do it. It's harder than you think. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to build power through allies, but remember that they're not going to carry you. People will disappoint you. You will end up with fights and with people that you care about and you thought were going to be there for you. You got to plan well and execute well. If you're just kind of going into it and just doing it and you're not planning finances and execution, you're going to fail. You got to beat every deadline and every budget. If you got one of these grants, you get a big $250,000 check in the bank. It's not a lot of money. You think it's a lot of money? It's not a lot of money. If you start paying yourself, you start buying things that you're not going to absolutely need, you will run out. Pay yourself out of profits only. Like I said, don't risk, and that's an important one, by the way. If you're like planning on paying yourself a salary and using this money, if you've got a grant to get started, you're not going to get there. Don't risk your life with this endeavor, but act as if you did. Because unless you have that passion, like you're going to die if this thing falls through, you shouldn't start. Be ready to sell. Here's the worst fallacy in the world. Great product sells itself. It doesn't. You sell great product. If you ain't ready to sell, you're not going to do anything. Execution is all that matters. Great products, meaningless. Great expertise, meaningless. All of that's meaningless. If you think you've got the best weed in the world, best products in the world, people better than you, failed. You got to execute. You got to go out there every day and execute on what you're doing. And start small and be ready to pivot. This is you'll hear it again and again in this thing. You think you're going to do one thing, man, he'll tell you that's not necessarily what you end up doing. You got to be ready to change and change and change again. So the key to this thing is get in the door, get going, and then when it's time to pivot, pivot. The owner called me up and said, I need you to help me get through licensing. And then, like, we got right through it. He didn't understand the steps that he was setting himself up for. He didn't know the timing. He thought if he finished, construction, was ready to open his doors, CCC would just come in and say, operate. No, you got to get inspections, and you got to get the thing. Then you got to get the CCC to say, okay. And the board only meets once a month to actually issue you that license. And then you got to actually operate without going out yet. Then you go for another inspection. The CCC says, okay, it looks like you can make stuff. Now you're allowed to sell stuff. Each one of those happens with time. And the biggest delays are the stuff you can't control, CCC, and the people doing the work. If the CCC comes in and does an inspection and says you got a deficiency, if you get it right back to them, like the next day, you'll move along pretty quick. You take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to resolve that deficiency, it just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. You got to be hyperactive about doing every single thing as fast as you can. You're working with a city department that's holding you up, go to their office every day, bang on their door. Like, that's the kind of stuff you've got to do, because the fire department, they'll hold you up for 6 months if you let them. Building department will hold you up for 6 months if you let them. Regulators will hold you up for 6 months if you let them. And if you don't know every step that you're going to hit, you're going to think you're all set. And, oh, no, I got another 3 months on the next thing. That's where people die. They either don't push it, like, working with somebody who wants to go through the process, and they get the building, and I put all the cameras in, and I'm looking around, they haven't cleaned the floors yet. They haven't set their gear up. I'm just like, okay, I guess you guys want to be delayed. Like, you should be in here every day, cleaning, painting, getting this thing going, living it every day. Execution is all that matters. There's no excuses when you're starting your own business, because if you don't get over every barrier, you don't get anywhere. The first barrier you don't get over is the end of the story. And the faster you get over them, and the cheaper. That's the other thing Manny's talking about. Like, don't go hire some lawyer who's going to, you think is going to run you through every bit of the process. Figure out which bits of the process you can run yourself. Do it yourself. A lot of the way that I'm going to help you, if we're talking about construction or cameras and stuff, I'm going to set you up to do stuff yourself, so you don't have to pay me to do it. You do that stuff, I showed Manny how to put cameras in and wire them and all that shit. Like, I'm not trying to take your money. I'd rather see you get going, right? So, yeah, that's it. So that applies to all of it, whether it's social consumption or anything else. Start immediately with what you can get going, and when that opportunity comes, grab hold.
Welcome, guys. Looks like it's you and Olga in the back. Thanks for coming. Thanks for everybody online. So I realized as I was driving down here that the one company that I did not put on this list as a client was my own. In 2013, 14, I was also on a team trying to get open. And I realized very quickly how expensive it is, how complicated it is, how many details you have to deal with. And people started calling me. I was in the legacy market. I was a grower. I was a caregiver. And I realized maybe I can just help the rich guys get in. So in the last 7 years, I've helped a bunch of companies go all the way through. These are often, I have clients who they owned a restaurant, right? They had some money. They're like, I think I can make money doing this. I have a couple $100,000 to burn on it. And 3 years later and $1 million later, they're finally open, right? It's been a very humbling process for a lot of companies, but there's a whole spectrum here. There's very wealthy companies that are, barely limping along, and there's like really tiny companies, mom and pop companies, that are actually doing great. And this building I'm sitting in right now, this is the whole pitch basically for this building, is an incredible spectrum of that. In this client list, I have somebody who spent millions of dollars. They're in multiple states, and they came into this building. They're my record. We got them open in 10 months from start to finish. That is unheard of. And then one of my favorite clients is also in this building. That's Manny and Damaris. Damaris also started in this building, but many years ago. And she has pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and hustled to try and get, so she's Blossom Flower, by the way, to get open, and she's now opening. And she's been open for what, 4 or 5 months now?
7 months.
7 months. There is no company I have ever seen, interacted with, been introduced to in this whole industry that has as little debt as Damaris does, and had as long and expensive a journey as her. So this can be done in this building. Partly why that works, why you can be a huge company and go in here and spend millions of dollars, or be a small company, is the landlord's willing to work with you. You know, this building is ideal for that. But I also wanted to list just a few of my clients that did not make it. You know, so I had tons of people approach me. They had amazing ideas. They even had money. They crashed and burned. They lost their spaces. They put in money and didn't make it. They're, you know, they had lawsuits with their owners. There is a lot of grief out there. So it happens. And, you know, some of these companies are companies I was a part of. So not everybody's going to succeed. And one thing I thought from the very beginning, and I still believe, and that is 3 main things you have to have for this industry. I don't care if you're a giant MSO or you are a tiny little one-person business. If you are a giant MSO and all you care about is money, and you don't give a shit about weed at all, you don't understand the culture, you have no interest in it, you don't even know what social equity is, you will have a very hard time entering and succeeding in the Massachusetts market. We are very focused on culture and who deserves to open in this market. And so passion and understanding culture and understanding like the history of cannabis and what that's all about is really important. People often want to know, you know, maybe you don't smoke weed, but at least you know what it's all about, right? That's important. Money, yes. Every single client I have always spent more money than they realized, right? Everybody was overconfident. I have $1 million and I'm going to do it for 700,000. Well, they did it for 1.2 and now they're $300,000 in debt. You know, it's very, very difficult. But again, in this building is an opportunity, and with the grant money, okay, if you have passion and you have some grant money and you can pivot to this building and go small, right? The more people, we're trying to get people to come into this building so that if, and the people who are here can see it's just a vast, huge space, right? So if you have 10 friends who are social equity, you can each get a 1,000 square foot space. The landlord will, you know, work on how to build a 10,000 square foot room into 10 1,000 square foot spaces. Well, if 10 companies have a $250,000 grant, that's 2.5 million that you can all spend. And then you're in a building with Damaris. That's a third-party transporter, a delivery company. There is manufacturers here. She also manufactures. There's a retail in this building, and there's cultivators in this building. It is the ultimate cannabis campus, right, for cannabis in this building. All the people work together. They all help each other. There's knowledge. It's an incredible resource. So I have been super honored to work with people for years and years, like Damaris, like OG, Dwayne Osborne, people that I was just helping out. Hey, look, you're social equity. I'm also a social equity applicant. And let's just see how we can help them get along and get a leg up in the industry, because often paying somebody like me is thousands of dollars just to even get open to get started, right? So a lot of people I'm just trying to give free information to. Well, finally we got the grants, right? So a lot of my people like finally got grant money, and I've gotten, I don't know, 15 different companies that I'm working with, social equity companies, and the money's real. It's coming in. So we were able to write a good story, like what they're going to do. Is it a realistic endeavor? Okay. Does the way we're writing this grant show that we understand the market, right? If you're going to write a grant that says you're going to do a tier 10 grow inside 90,000 square feet, your weed better glow in the dark, okay? Because people have done that and failed. It's very, very hard. So you need to write a story to those grant people so that they know their money's going to go to something that's going to work, right? That's about knowing your limitations. I have always been humbled by the industry. I came to it very late. You know, my parents grew weed in my backyard when I was a little kid, but like being in the business was something always very intimidating to me. So I knew my limits. I like to help people get through, right? I learned how to do all the rules and all the regulations and compliance and all that stuff. But man, let the people like Damaris who have nerves of steel to push all the way through. So know your limits too. Know what you're capable of doing. And then this is the big hustle for me. The true game of what we're trying to do right now as a social equity group is work with the grant office, the Executive Office of Economic Development. It is in the law that money from tax revenue in this industry has to go back to the people who are affected by the war on drugs, right? People who are raided, people who lived in neighborhoods that were had high arrest rates and everything. So the story you tell in your grant has to show them that if you take their money, you're going to increase those numbers, the social equity numbers, right? Basically, the state wants to see metrics. They want to have numbers that prove that they can give money away, and then at the end of that year, there's a couple more people making progress, right? This building is an amazing way to do that, because you're not paying rent on this building for 10 months and just wasting all that grant money. And then when you go to write the next grant, you're like, oh, well, I still haven't gotten a license. I don't have this document. I don't have this, but I spent a bunch of money on a huge empty space. Well, here you can get a letter of intent, just a simple document and a small space. That's going to help the grant people. They're like, okay, this is reasonable size, right? You can spend money on 1,000 square foot space and not break the bank, right? So this building is also in Holyoke. It is an area of disproportionate impact. So every dollar the grant office spends that goes to this city in this building is a bonus for them. That is something they can report back to the state and say, yeah, we sent, $1 million to 1 Cabot Street, but it's an area of disproportionate impact, right? There were higher arrests in Holyoke, and they're trying to make reparations for that, right? So that's kind of our game we play. Can we increase the numbers for the state, make us look good, and they'll give us more money, right? But we have to pivot. We don't know if that 1,000 square space you're going to have is going to be viable in a year when you actually get the license going, right? You might need 5,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet, or you may need to collaborate in a different way. Social consumption may be around, right? But it's much better to pivot into social consumption when you've told the grant office, hey, I did rent that 1,000 square foot space. I got a letter of intent. I got a host agreement from the city. I got Ezra to help me get licensed. I talked to all these people in the building. Everything's hooked up, ready to go. I'm on my way to a provisional license. But now I'm not sure that manufacturing of the drink or whatever that I wanted to do is going to work. But now there's social consumption, and I already have a space for it, right? I've already gotten a license for it. So if you could just give me a little more money for this new license category, then I can take what I've already done. I've proven to you, look what I got. I got a space, I got this, I got a host agreement, all these things. The grant people will be like, yeah, they're hustlers, man. They know what they're doing. They have a lot of information. They got a space. They got all the information to make us look good, like our money is going somewhere good, right? And then you pivot. The biggest, smartest, richest companies in this industry are pivoting constantly, right? Trulieve in this city, they spent $100 million in the state, right? They're like, we're going to take over. Well, they didn't understand the market. They pivoted. They left the state. First, they had somebody who died in a building, which was tragic, but they had to pivot and leave. So everybody pivots. You guys can do it too, but you got to start somewhere. Don't keep that one dream. I'm going to do a 10,000 square foot grow. Start with something small and grow from there. So this last thing, I know I'm 55 seconds over. Just ask people like me, ask people who are already open, ask town officials, anybody where you can get free information before you write a check. The number of times people have said to me, oh, hey, Ezra, I wanted to hire you, but you seemed, too expensive or this and that. And then they tell me, oh yeah, I spent, $80,000 paying rent on this one location. And I'm like, oh, you didn't have to do that because the regulations say you don't need to, pay this. You can get a letter of intent. There's different ways of saving money. So reach out to this community for free information first. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
No slides. We don't need all that. Just realness and reality, right, guys? So, hello, everybody. So I am Manny, right? I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Blossom Flower, right? A lot of you guys know Damaris, right? Started the journey 2019. We went and did our applications and licensing in 2020. A lot of stuff between general contractors and build outs and all this stuff, but we've been here at this building since 2020, right? Building's been around. We've seen people come and go in the industry and all that good stuff, right? We opened August 3rd of last year. We've been open a little bit over 7 months now. And I will be the first to tell you, as social equity, right, when you're operating on a budget, right, takes a lot of time, right? That time is important, right? I'm probably the first one in, the last one out. I leave at 11. Damaris is always like, get out of here. You got to go home. You got to go to work in the morning, because I also have another business, right? That's construction, you know? And she's like, you got to go, right? But you have to put that time in when you don't have the cost, right? You don't have the funds. You're like, if I either I do it or I pay someone else to do it. But I got 2 things for you guys today. The first one is a motto that I live by that you guys may have heard before, which is, if you plan to fail, you fail to plan, right? You know what I mean? No, if you plan to fail, you plan to fail, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's how you say it. There you go, right? What that means is, it's great. The cannabis is cool, right? Everybody knows it. Me personally, I was like, I don't know nothing. Damaris's dream, I'm gonna support her. That's my woman, right? We're gonna make things happen. Do what it do, right? What does that mean? I know I have a lot of other skill sets from running multi-million-dollar companies from an executive level, have a college education. I know software, I know this, I know that. We'll take some of these skill sets, right, where they pay me a whole lot of money in a corporate world for, right, to apply it to the dream and the business sense, right? So I did that. What we do is, though, is you have to learn 935 CMR, the regulations. When you read the regulations, you understand how you can do it and get by with a cost-effective way, right? That's the first thing, because everybody's going to try to sell you this, sell you that, sell you this, sell you that, and it gets expensive, right? So when you learn how, hey, if I need a vehicle, what's the regulation to say? Oh, I could buy a used vehicle. I don't have to go buy a brand new vehicle. Or, hey, I need security. What security cameras are going to be compliant? Oh, I need this, this, and this. How do I do this on a budget to open to where you can still have operational costs, right? Try to use your network, your support function. We started with family. Now we're up to 15 employees that work every day, right? And we're growing. I'm hiring more. I'm interviewing people. And we've only been open 7 months. So with that, it's because of the plans. We're doing things to say, okay, hey, I need to know that I need to talk to networks. A lot of people know Manny name. Everybody knew Damaris, right? But now we're meeting with business people. We do third-party transport. We were 1 of 5 in the state. Now we're 1 of 4, right? But we're new. Why are they using us? It's because of communication, and people want to have someone they can trust. So as I said, I don't need signs. I don't need this. I don't need that. It's more about just genuineness. If you can have a conversation with someone and said, does it make sense to do business with me? And this is why, right? We're social equity for one. So if you're a big MSO, you have community impact plans that it's going to affect that. But the second one is like, hey, if we say we're going to do something, it's a handshake and an eye. Like, I don't need a contract. It's going to be done. Either you burn me or not. It's the streets, right? We're selling weed, right? And that's the hustle. So with that, you have to plan each step accordingly. You have to look at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Plan. If someone says, hey, I want to open a micro business, I want to do a branding, I want to do manufacturing, make sure before you go and try to get grant money that, hey, how much does packaging cost? What's the average price of a kilo of distillate? What's an average price of a pound? How much is it going to take for me to get this pound to market, right? With delivery, whether you have a retail location or that. How many touch points does this one product cost me, right? If you have a delivery, yeah, guess what? The keystone model is to say, if I buy it for 15, I sell it for 30. In this industry, that doesn't happen, right? So you have to understand that depending on where your location is, Boston's great. There's more money here. The cost of living, the people's pockets. I can't sell something that I buy for 15 for 30 because I have 15 other dispensaries due to saturation. So you have to look at, okay, what is the market value going for? What can I cost? Delivery is more expensive than a retail due to gas. If you send someone to Springfield, that's 30 minutes. I pay an employee, right, an hourly wage. So it takes them 30 minutes to get there, 30 minutes to get back. If I only deliver 2, I end up losing. That price that I try to bump up my price goes. You only get that information through research, right? What is a touch? What are my touch points? How would I get there, right? So that's the key. That's the first one is, right, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's it. That's the first model that everybody should know and go with. The second thing that I'm going to give everybody with is community matters, right? I see so many people with social equity, right? We've seen events. I've personally been a part of it. I've seen some of you guys, great faces. Y'all seen me. We've been in Vegas. We go here, we go there. It's very unique to me that I see the same cohort, majority. There's a couple new faces that I don't know. Welcome. Hello, guys. Right? But there's a bigger community there that matters, right? If you are a social equity business, right, the only way that we get stronger and help each other is by communicating, dealing with each other, building each other. If we're a product manufacturer or you're a product manufacturer and you're another social equity company and you're not buying those products from other social equity, but you'll go and spend money with MSOs, there's a disconnect, right? There's a problem there, right? You got to promote it, because what happens is each one teach one. Iron sharpens iron. As they said, make sure that you communicate, ask the questions. Hey, Damaris, how does this go? Hey, Ezra, how does this go? Hey, Jay, how did this go, right? They'll give you some free information. They'll say this. Obviously, they have time, they have families, there's cost involved, right? But they'll show you a cost-effective, give you small gems to say, hey, this is how you do it. Me, I'm very aggressive and very fast. I don't make excuses, because excuses are for losers, right? If you have to plan, you have to win. So what happens is when you step into a room, people have to understand, like, hey, who the fuck is this guy and what is he doing, right? And then you go to him like, oh, motherfucker like Suge Knight. You know what I mean? That's what I hear in the fucking industry. Oh, Suge Knight, here he coming, right? And it's a joke, but the intellect is what's important, because I can stand in a room and talk to anybody and say, hey, this is how we're communicating. This is what we're doing. Here's a contract. If you send something, here's an email, right? Be professional in the way you deal with things. Everything from your signature line and your email to everything else is important, because it's lasting impressions. Anytime you walk into a room, there's an impression, whether it's a good impression or a bad impression. So the community thing is important, right, to look at. You know, we did talk about certain things where you could potentially do something on your packaging and social equity. You're buying from this, you're supporting women-owned, you're doing that. You know, and we do that on our website. We have other women-owned businesses that we support and broadcast on banners. There's things, but you communicate and pull that together, right? So last two things, right? Plan and think about community if you're really going to be social equity, right? Those are the two things that will take you a far way. The most important one is planning. Please plan. Understand how much it costs to get product to there and what your COGS are, right? Cost of goods. Accounting is expensive. We pay $150 for a CPA, and believe it or not, that's cheap. An hour, right? $150 an hour, and that's cheap. But that cost, those are other costs that you got to deal with. You got banking. Your banking is audited. You can't touch a dollar without them like, hey, where'd this go, right? So understand QuickBooks. Learn that, right? Learn the process. Learn metric. Learn how to do a transfer. I tell you right now, I've been in the industry for a year. There's not so many people that I've met that's been doing this for years, that's open, that come and ask me questions. And I'm like, you're an MSO. You got way more money than we do. How the fuck do you not know this, right? It's because I took the time, Damaris took the time to put in that work and that effort, right? And that's what you need. So make sure you guys do that, all right? Thank you.
Start right now. So a little bit more of an introduction, right? Riverside Mill Development Company. We got our name on the stuff. You know, what are we? It's me and Ed. Ed's a social equity applicant. I'm not. I'm a guy from industry. I'm a corporate guy. I jumped into this because I hate working in corporate America, and I love weed, and I wanted to do something that was that was not corporate America. But as I told you, the story downstairs and the kid, we didn't make a lot of money, and I had to go back to work. That's the experience. And to put that in context, we raised $8 million. It's all gone. That happens. Where'd it go? We thought we were going to open a 100,000 square foot grow. So you start running for 100,000. I should have opened a little tiny thing with a lot less money and kept going. That's the kind of stupid mistakes that you make. And like, I got education and running businesses, all kinds of stuff, right? A lot of the time, like Manny was saying, you got to talk to people. Back then, 5 years ago, nobody would talk to you. You're just out in the wilderness. So now people will talk to you. There's good people around. Make sure you talk to them, because some people who've made a mistake, like me, my people, keep probably still going, but you know, it's rough. So our partners are Ezra, right? Blossom in this building, and the One Cabot building ownership. Now, to clarify a little bit about the opportunity that's here, Landlord's not quite as flexible as if you want 1,000 square foot space, going to give you 1,000 square foot space. We got to organize ourselves to do this in chunks, in blocks, because 1,000 square foot space really isn't interesting to any landlord. They can't make money on that. It's not worth them cleaning up the hallways and building a bathroom for everybody to use if you're only taking a little tiny thing, right? So that's a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about. Now, why are we doing this? One is to use your skills. Me and Ed, like, went through this. We went through hell. Like, if I showed you what the space looked like when we started, like, it was insane. We want to make money. If you're not here to make money, if you think that it's like some community building endeavor, that's your primary reason, or, you know, because you love weed, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. You got to make money. That's it. It's going to take a lot of your life. You got to make the money. And we like investing, or I like investing my time in successful startups. Like, I like being part of that. I like seeing people grow. And if we get close to the margins and, you know, I can't take the kind of, you know, there's no money in it for me. If you got a great story, I'm willing to put my time in to be part of your organization. Well, we can help you provide through the partners, not just me, but license grants and inspections. That's Ezra, right? LOI and leases, right? So as I was saying, the landlord's not just going to give you an LOI and 1,000 feet. It's going to have to be 7 or 8 of us coming in asking for a group of LOIs, because then that's interesting too. He's not going to leave the building open unless he knows there's something on the other side of it. Facility design and build out. This is something I'm an expert in at this point in time. I've designed just about every facility in here except Manny's. I've done all the engineering for the electric, mechanical, the plumbing. I do all the cameras. I do all the access control. And Ezra will tell you, that's some of the most expensive stuff in the pile. And we do it for 1/10 of what a security consultant's going to come in and do it for. We can help you with equipment. My target is, or our target is, everything you need to open day one achievable in your $250,000 grant. That doesn't mean you can't do what I tried to do. You can't try to open a 100,000 square foot grow. It's not going to go. Right? You gotta know what that means to stay within that budget. So what's available here within that budget? Well, manufacturing, cultivation, and in the future, social consumption, stuff that's not available here. There's already a retail location in this building, so you can't put another one here. It'd be a waste of your time. Delivery and third-party transporter. Blossom does that, and we got a really slim parking lot. So even if we were willing to step all over the good business that's downstairs, couldn't do it anyways. There's no place to put extra vehicles. Okay. Retail is available elsewhere, and I can do a breakout session in that. So if there are people here who want retail, and that's your reason, or people on the line, talk to me, because we got a great idea for opening a retail location within your $250,000 budget. That's actually possible. It's not possible if you're opening a standard retail outlet like you see downstairs. It's not gonna come close. But there's ways to do it. So start small and pivot, right? Easiest, cheapest licenses. That's what we're looking to focus you towards. Things like packaging, manufacturing that does not involve cooking and does not involve solvents. You get into the world of solvents, you get into the world of ovens, various things, everything gets a lot more expensive. So packaging, pre-roll, solventless extraction, vape carts, topicals, hash, various other things that you might be able to come up with that don't require you to cook it or use a solvent to make it. Cooking or solvent type extraction is possible. It costs a lot more. Better not to start there. Better to start with the other ones and then pivot to it, just like we were talking about pivoting. Cultivation is possible, but you have to start tiny if you're going to be trying to get in a $250,000 budget. So talk about that if that's your interest.
Just mentioned like clones or genetics.
Yeah, clones or genetics is a good way to start. Or if you're just going to put up 2 or 3 lights and you're happy with trying yourself in the market, growing, 2 pounds, 10 pounds. If you're planning on doing 50 lights, even if you're planning on doing 15 lights, you're way out of your budget. And then the most important thing for you to do here that I can't help you with and you got to do on your own is sell. Told you before, good product sells itself. You hear people say that. It's just a lie. Somebody being lazy. Okay. Network. Find the people that can help you. Find the people that'll work for you. Get ready to go door to door in your selling process. Maybe he didn't say it, but he's got a ton of accounts and it didn't just happen. Right? Didn't just happen. And if you're going door to door, and this is the hard one that people are tough with, is you're probably going to have to consign your stuff to begin with. Getting your stuff inside a retail outlet is not as simple as walking in and saying, I got the best stuff. because they look at their shelves and they're going, I got shelves full of everybody's best stuff. Like, you're probably going to be asking in the first place for consignment. One of the reasons why I put this in here is getting started small, keeping your money, right? Only spending what you have to. The selling part of this is going to be hard. And you're going to have to make sacrifices, and you're going to have to work hard. And then once you've established yourself and the store knows people are buying your product, then you're going to be able to back off, right? But if you're expecting to walk in and put your stuff on the counter and somebody's going to shell out a bunch of cash to buy it off you right there, don't even start. Unless you've got a community of people that are already committed to you, that's different. But it's a lot harder than you think. All right. So what we're looking for here is 6 to 10 grant holders, hopefully for manufacturing, and ideally that already have their grants, because there are a number of you out there that have the grants. That's the easiest and fastest one to go, because you're not going to have to run the grant process. And then looking at a phase 2, new grant holders, other license types, and those sorts of things. If there are no grant holders that come forward, or we don't get 6 to 10, then let's talk about how we bring all the others in, everybody that doesn't have one, and get you through that process so we can get moving. But if we can get 6 to 10 people, it's as fast as we can move, right? You got to work through the process to get the license, but we would get 6 or 10 people together. We'd establish the way that we're going to work, what the businesses are that you want to work on, and I'm going to present that to the landlord, right, to make sure that he's going to be okay with it, and he's going to give us the LOIs, and that allows us to go through the licensing process. You can't get a license until you get a commitment to a piece of property. And that means a letter of intent from a landlord. Right, so let's get your information if you're interested. See if we can assemble 6 to 7 people. Hopefully some grants, because that'll make the landlord that'll give them a lot more of a warm feeling, right? You know, that it's not like a bunch of pie in the sky stuff. Get through that process and get going.
I'll answer grant questions. This is a super good question. I'm super glad you brought it up, because if there's one thing we know about what the grant office, the EOED, is doing, is something different each time, right? Just as we're sort of making this up as we go along, trying to figure out how to pivot and take advantage of social equity status, all these things, the grant office, this is the second round right now, and they did a bunch of $250,000 grants. They even are doing a $500,000 grant, and they did a $50,000 and a $25,000. This grant process and the way they're rolling out this grant, completely different than the first round. The first round, they literally just wrote a check, just gave it to people. It's kind of insane. Like, you applied for the grant, everybody got the money. You did have to show receipts, right? You had to take that money and put it into the industry. But we have no idea. And I keep telling everybody, and I'm glad you brought it up, that there's all kinds of different ways they're going to look at this. They might find, wow, we spent $250,000 on 50 companies and only 10 of them use the money right. So we're not going to do that again, right? We don't know. They might do a $100,000 grant though, which is pretty good. You know, I think that's a good range. They went from 25 basically to 250 in this round. They didn't really have a solid, you know, middle ground between those. So they might do like a $100,000 grant. Remember, there's very few social equity people and very few people working in that office. I talk to the administrator, Joe Gilmore, all the time, and I tell him what I think we should do, what I think they should spend the money on. He told me, make sure that you're lobbying our office. If you want that $250,000 grant again, email them and say, look, I found a scenario where I can, for $250,000, I can actually get open. I really hope you do that grant again, right? Tell the office, because he specifically told me there are companies that are social equity that are already operating who are emailing his office saying, don't give any more money out. Only give it to us because we're the operators. Don't make us compete with all the new people, right? That's a controversial thing to say. So if we're loud, if you guys are still wanting to get in, and you can email that office, pick up the phone and call that office and say, hey, you know, here's my idea, here's what I want to do, right? So you're right, we don't know. We have to pivot. Here's what could happen. Here's like a really bad scenario, but there may be some hustle in it, and that is they're also supposed to give grants to cities. okay? There's municipal grants, because part of what they're trying to do is help areas of disproportionate impact. So I also consult for the city of Holyoke. And I told them 2 years ago, guys, you got to get ready for that social equity grant. So I've been priming the city so that if and when they do municipal grants, I can also listen to you guys. I can tell the city and say, here, look, they're going to give us $1 million grant. You know, that office is going to give the city $1 million grant, but it has to help people participate in the industry. So we get to decide what that is. You know, I'm going to take $1 million and say, well, there's a bunch of people who are trying to open in one cabot. How about we, you know, the city helps them there or does something in that way. We don't know yet. But yeah, you're right. We don't know. It could be. That's why this building is a very low risk, okay? Because if 10 people all came together and they got 10 1,000 square foot spaces, and you have 10,000 you know, square feet in this building that's going to move forward, and then and the cost to just secure that, and then work with me and work with people in the building to get a license where you can get more money, right? It's way lower risk than like renting a retail spot in Boston for $5,000 a month, and then you hold on to it for 10 months, and then the grant office says, oh, we're only going to give city grants this year. And then, oh my God, you got to hold on to that rent for another 10 months, right? Because in 10 months or 20 months, that landlord could sell the building to somebody else who's like, no, you're out. I don't care. And that's it. You literally just burned away all that money. So that's why I also say, like, be able to hustle, you know, Manny, to do your research and learn the whole system, but also learn it as you go. Don't say, I got to learn the entire system and all the regulations for how to grow weed because I'm going to grow. Because in 10 months or 20 months, you might, you know, have a partnership where you're making the coolest new product and you learned all this stuff about grow. So only learn what you need to know right now to get to the next step, right? People always ask me, like, what do you think's going to happen when the feds legalize weed? I'm like, I don't really have that conversation because we have no idea. And it's going to take years. Even if tomorrow Trump is like, it's all legal, the regulations to get there, it's going to take years. Social consumption, they have a draft of regulations. It looks pretty good. I like it, actually. You can smoke indoors. That's the most important thing, right? If this was a licensed social consumption lounge, we could all be smoking weed right now, and you'd walk over to the little box that's, you know, separated from the smoking area and go buy a pre-roll, and we could keep smoking. That's an amazing model. It's a great model. But we don't know. We don't know what the towns are going to do, right? Holyoke pool for social consumption yet. The city council has to approve that. They could be like, we're only going to put it in one tiny neighborhood, just in the flats. I have no idea, right? So you can speculate about it. In this building, you know, again, I would say, if you want to do that and you can think about, all right, I'm going to start with manufacturing, or I'm going to start with a tiny grow, and then I want to get a space next to another space that might be for social consumption when they open that up. That's a great idea, but don't rent that space, right? There are people who rented retail spaces before they came up with the regs, and then when everything was laid out and they had all the rules, their retail space was not in a approved zone. Waste of money. So yeah, we can speculate all day long. Think about your vision, but again, start tiny. Whatever you do with social consumption, we have no idea if that model is going to work. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things about doing this the way that we're doing it is that we want to do it in blocks of people, right? So, like I said, it's not going to be one person opening the space. It's going to be 6 or 7 opening the space. So when we get to the social consumption piece of this, right? If there's 7 people that say they want to do it, it's a lot easier if I want to argue with the city about where they're going to put it, if I bring 7 people that are ready to do the thing with a property that's ready to take it on, than if it's just like
one guy,
dude showing up at the mayor's office being like, you know, where can I open a space?
Yeah, let me just interject.
Yeah.
So that was a good question. So,
You get it.
Come over here, man.
Yeah, sorry. So this is a real conversation that happened today at about 10:30 this morning. I was over at Choice Dispensary down in Blackstone. They got about 5,000 square foot space. They have an active dispensary. They have a 5,000 square foot space that used to be a paintball thing that's connected. They want self-consumption. They were advocating for it. The town put a ban, right? So now they're like, what the fuck? Right? What do we do? Right? So now they're like, hey, Manny, why don't we do a transport here? We could do some stuff together with your transport. You know, we could put some money in. Like, kind of, this is real business that we're talking about now. But they had to pivot. As we keep talking about these pivots, right? So my background in regulation is the reason why I get 935 CMR. I went to school for safety, occupational health, right? Regulations, federal government. I've been dealing with them for years, right? 1910 for general industry, 1926 for construction, EM 385 for government projects, right? What does all that mean? OSHA is existent, right? They still exist. They can still come. If you have over 10 employees, you must fill out an OSHA 300A log. If you have a building, you must be the building code, right? Cigar lounges. People want to have somewhere to smoke. There's town bans that says you can't smoke. I don't give a damn what you do. You can't open up. You got to think about exhaust fans, think about fire codes, your building, because the first thing the fire chief is going to do. Already, if you smoke and that joint falls out because you're high, right? We all fucked up, and you drop that joint. Well, what's the building? Is it fire rated? Is this wood gonna go up in a fucking flame if it happens? Right? These are things you gotta think about. Social consumption sounds cool. We all want to party. We all want to sit tight, have our friends, bring a DJ. Oh, it's a nice little place because there's nothing like that, right? There's a couple places in Worcester that we do a little couple things that's so, not really, but it's a private club, right? So it can function in where the Cannabis Commission is, right? So they're doing what they're doing. But the key is there's a lot of regulations. So it's still an open space. It is open. I think the mayors went to a meeting with some of the CCC a couple of weeks ago. They invited her because she's social equity, right? And they know her, and that's a great thing. And there was social consumption talks about, oh, you can actually do it in your space. You could do this. You could do that. You got the perfect setup. And a lot of y'all know Damaris. She's great with events. She does these events. She throws things. People come, you know. But your building space is still going to exist. Just if the CCC approves it and says, hey, yes, this is great, right? The town can put a ban. The fire direct marshal or captain can say, no, this building's not up to code. And then you're going to spend tens and thousands of dollars, right? So I just want you guys to think about that.
Other questions?
I think for me, so a scenario for social consumption, you guys are thinking if we come in, start small with a company, right? Have our products, edibles, different things like that, and then when that opens up, once we have the inventory and we can transition,
Yeah.
if there's enough buy-in from people here, try and make that move. To try and push the city to say, hey, we can have a cannabis campaign here.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be, that's the target for this space, right? Ed's social equity, I mean, we're partners, and we will immediately, as soon as they get it, and we're going to be running as hard as possible. And I'm a construction guy. I know about solving all the same stuff that Manny's talking about. It's all hard. None of it's easy. My advice in all of these circumstances is, I think it's the same advice as Ezra, which is if you can get a social equity number and you can get a grant, start something. Because there's no requirement that you succeed. If you start a little manufacturing operation and all you do is make a couple of joints, you try and go around selling a couple of dispensaries, that's reason enough to get into the industry. If they're going to hand you a grant for it, why wouldn't you? And I can tell you that we opened a cultivation operation. It was a heck of a lot easier for us to go than then add manufacturing and then add retail on top of that, as if we just started, with the retail, right? Because you got a base, you got product, you get your own product that you can start putting in there. You already got a license, the regulators, all of that stuff matters, and it's hard to do. So if you want to be in it, don't wait for the social equity, the social consumption piece, because it may never show up. And if it does show up, and when it does show up, you're better to be started. You're going to find out, man, how hard it is just to get the license. And once you get that process down and you understand how it works, and you understand how metric works, and you understand all the pieces that you're going to have to understand to run the thing, adding another one's easy, because they're not easy, it's not hard, it's a lot easier. Oh, well, the deal is, and we can sit down later. I'm not going to do it on here, but I've got a map up of what the building looks like. I got a couple of examples of how we can lay out small spaces to make it work. Potentially the one, aside from the fire regulations and making sure it works, you don't need a lot of equipment, right? A couple of couches if you want. But the hard part is just be, forging that new path, because it doesn't exist yet. There's no reason why we can't do it here unless there's some reason we can't do it here, because we don't know yet. If you're interested in retail opportunities, let's talk about that. I'm not going to do it online because the concept that we have is kind of cool and different. I'm not interested in exposing all of that to the world. We're going to do additional meetings in the future, right? Get back together, talk more about what we're doing, follow-up meetings.